Okay, I will call finance to order on Thursday, October 21st at 6 p.m. Members present, Kevin Myers, Bruce Truca, James Me, and myself, Chair.
Do we need to wait for the recording to start? Are you recording this?
He's recording here.
We're up in mine.
Well, you're on the mic, but how about the recording that the clerk does? The audio recording? And I'm going to, I'm going to take this agenda packet because there was nothing put on documents on demand, and I know she's getting copies, but I have no clue what's going on.
Round red button.
Of course, and then do anything.
Did you get it?
Something's
Fire
happening.
chief's in there printing off having her print off a code. That's why the holdup is, she said to turn the power button on, hit the red button.
I hit the red button. Yeah, that's all.
It's on.
That's all.
There it goes. Testing? Yeah, it's on. Go ahead.
Okay, I'll start this over again. Calling finance to order at 6:04 p.m. Members present, Kevin Myers, Bruce Truca, James Me, and myself, Chair. It is Thursday, October 21st, 2021. Public participation.
Vicki DeShawn, 1108 Hillcrest Drive. I'm trying to figure out what I want to say here. so it's not construed as public shaming. I listened to a September 14th Special Planning Committee audio. And at that particular meeting, that had to do with the proposed property maintenance legislation. I know this has nothing to do with finance. I'm just giving backdrop of what I'm going to say, or why I'm going to say what I'm going to say. In that meeting, it ended with a couple of the council or a couple of the committee members thanked the audience for coming and said it's great that you're coming, talking to us, telling what your thoughts are. At that meeting, McKeever stated he was glad to see the people. He said, we have the problem. People wait until after the legislation's been passed, and then they want to complain. They don't want to come and give us their feedback before we do legislation. Well, tonight is a prime example of why people don't come to give their feedback. Is nothing was on documents on demand, giving an agenda of what was going to be talked about tonight. So how do you know if you want to come or not? I mean, you can't fault people for not coming to a meeting and expressing their concerns and then say, well, why didn't you come to the meeting before we passed the legislation? When you don't alert those people as to what's going to be discussed. Most people are not going to come to a carte blanche meeting and sit for who knows how long to wait and see if something's going to be discussed that they're concerned about. This is called transparency. I mean, like I say, nothing on documents on demand. I had no clue what was going on tonight other than the brief announcement that was put on documents demand, although I've been told by the council clerk in a previous meeting, well, I put that on the calendar. Well, the calendar says, I've got a copy of it on my phone, but the calendar's like the agenda to be TBT or whatever, or you click it. Well, there's nothing there. So why even have that on there when you don't then have an agenda that you can go to and look at? Again, I don't understand why you don't want people to know what's going on. And that's what I feel. You don't want them to know what's going on. And tonight was another prime example, and this isn't the first time. Thank you.
Okay. Is there anybody else? If not, we'll go on to the approval of minutes. Does anybody have any questions over these minutes?
I don't know. I've never been able, I haven't read them, so I mean, I guess I'll abstain.
These are the same minutes you all had last week, and they were corrected with these changes today.
So committee, are you wanting to look at these and discuss them, or you want to table it to the next committee meeting?
Be able to have the time to read through and compare them to my previous notes just before I vote off.
Jim? Bruce?
Yeah, I'm not gonna approve them tonight.
Okay. Joyce, you have the floor. We're going to D, appropriations.
Okay. Actually, I was a little surprised that I didn't have more changes than this for now, but I'm glad I don't. The appropriations listed, we need to appropriate from unappropriated general funds in Program 1, Security of Persons and Property, in the Police Department, Personal Services, $81,525. The reason for this is personnel changes, and we had 2 retirements in the dispatch area that caused the shortage. That and some changes in hospitalization from some new dispatchers that came in. So, and then also under general government in Program 7 for the maintenance utility worker, we need to appropriate $2,500 to the personal services there to get us through to the end of the year. Then in the safety forces levy, we need to appropriate from unappropriated funds $10,000 to the police department personal services and $80,000 to the fire department personal services. The $80,000 is due to, well, both of them are due to some cuts we made initially at the beginning of the year because we weren't sure how the budget was going to go. So we're able to replace some of that money. And police department was still pretty close in theirs, but fire department has new hires for the EMS coming up, so we needed to cover that. And then in sewage disposal, sewers and drains, personal services, we need to appropriate $20,000, and that was due to some transfers and changes in health insurance coverage, someone from, from single to family or whatever, and it caused a shortage there. So that's all I have as far as appropriations for right now.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions for Joyce? If not, can I entertain a motion as an emergency for these appropriations?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. If there's no other discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passed.
Also, Mr. Chairman, behind the minutes is ordinance 37-2021. This is for the depository agreements. This is what we were going to discuss the other night and couldn't have the meeting.
That's correct.
Every 5 years, we have to go out to bid with our local banks, and letters are sent to them, and then they provide us with a document, an agreement per se, of how much money they will hold as active and interim funds for us that they collateralize, and they let us know how much they will collateralize. And those are due back, I believe, November 10th. I know we changed the dates since we got delayed on this. And then we'll let our attorneys in Cleveland know, and they'll prepare the legislation authorizing us to enter into these agreements that you will need to pass on November the 16th.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions for Joyce on this? If not, do I have a motion to accept this as an emergency?
So moved.
Second.
If there's no other discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion passed. Okay, open projects. If there's nothing for us to discuss, I will ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. Second. Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passed. At 6:15, I am adjourned for finance. Thursday, October 21st, 2021, at 6:15 PM. Members present, Bruce Truca, Doug Vogt, James, me, and myself, Chair. Public participation. Okay. If there's no public participation, we'll move on to approval.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
is that when, is now when he needs to do this?
You think that was plotting or? It's ordinance, I need, repeal a chapter in the codified ordinance.
I'm doing the approval first, then you're coming up. It's the building zone,
Okay.
the zoning ordinance for,
No, that's not part of that.
That's not it.
That's not part of this.
That's what Kurt brought up,
This
that's
is
on this.
something
completely
different.
different.
well, can we do that in, it's not open project, so.
It's probably just gotta be referred to the committee at some point.
That would be done on a Tuesday meeting.
Right.
Yeah, you didn't get-
Can we do that in our special meeting tonight?
No.
As a referral?
No, it's a special meeting.
Special meeting.
Yeah, wasn't advertised that way.
The problem, it's not an emergency, so.
Okay,
Nope.
all right, I'm sorry.
Nope.
Okay, approval of minutes. There's only 1 minute to be approved. It's the Tuesday, September 14th meeting. You have it in front of you.
Somewhere,
Sorry?
somewhere.
You reading it?
Looking for it.
Okay.
She's back in the back. Oh, that was.
It's right after that bank depository.
Did you find it?
Is that it?
Public lands.
It was right behind the side of the agenda.
There it is. Thank
There
you.
it is. I'll give you a moment to read it.
I don't need to read it again. I don't need to read it again.
Okay.
So even, I got a question, even though the minutes, even though we don't read the numbers for the lot numbers, don't they still have to be in those?
Parcel numbers?
Yeah, parcel numbers, don't they still have to be part of the minutes?
That'd be a legal question.
I'm not gonna argue and say they shouldn't be.
Your minutes don't have to be verbatim. It would sort of be up to your committee as to what they're comfortable with. Addresses are not necessarily specific, so the more specificity you guys want in your minutes, parcel numbers are more specific because each parcel number is assigned, and you can take that specific parcel number and go onto the auditor or onto and actually find that specific plot of land. So parcel numbers are the most specific form of identification.
That's why I brought up the other night about addresses not being, because there's lots of.
Right, addresses
There
are
not
sort
addresses, and
of,
it's just
like,
parcel number.
addresses are sort of postal codes that are sort of fake, to be quite honest. Out in the country, there are a bunch of addresses that are random fields that don't exist. So parcel numbers would be your most specific codes, and that's why in that legislation for the zoning codes, if you have the parcel numbers specifically outlined in your ordinance or in your reclassification of zoning, that would encompass it, and that would specifically identify each parcel that you intend to reclassify into a new zone. Addresses are a little vague, but it would be up to, I mean, minutes do not have to be a verbatim, this is exactly what we want to do, so it's what you guys as a committee are comfortable with. Parcel numbers would be the most specific, absolute, this is what we intend to do, this is exactly what we are comfortable with, and these are the exact parcel numbers, so if anybody ever would come and question what was supposed to be included, what was discussed, what was not supposed to be included, that would be a very easy and identifiable way to identify what was and what was not included in that, especially when you look at this and you're including 16 parcels, 14 parcels, I forget the number.
You're in the red office a long time.
Yeah, there's a bunch of parcel numbers, and it's out by the engineer's office, so there's a bunch of different little tiny parcels in and out, and some of them are owned by the county, some of them are owned by individual landowners, and you transpose numbers and you mess it up, but it's up to the committee, obviously. But like I said,
So you said you transpose numbers and you mess it up?
you transpose parcel numbers and you take somebody who, yeah. So, for instance, the parcel numbers on these are like ending in so these are all 0800173020, 0800173030, 0800173040, 50, 60, 70, 80, and so on and so forth, all the way through 14, 15, 16. If you include some of those, 15, 16 are actually, and I'm messing this up, but 15 and 16 could be a actual property owner and not the county. So if you include some of those parcel numbers, you have included a landowner and not the county's properties. So each of those parcel numbers is specific to a parcel of land. And so the most specific way to identify which parcels would be parcel numbers.
So we should use parcel numbers.
That would be legally the most specific way to identify property is by their parcel numbers. Yes. That would be the. But yes, legally the most absent real property descriptions, which is meets and bounds, which is basically surveys, property, and in the city we don't do surveys, you do in-lots and out-lot numbers. Right. But absent surveys and in-lot and out-lot numbers, parcel numbers are your most specific form of identification. Addresses are sort of imaginary postal codes.
But as this legal counsel is, I mean, shouldn't we be as specific as possible?
Specificity is great, yes. The more specific,
So we
the
should
easier.
use parcel numbers.
Yes, I would
Okay.
use parcel numbers.
Would you use parcel numbers in your notes and your legislation?
That's where he was saying the difference there is in our notes that what we're talking about, or our minutes that we're talking about, you don't need to be verbatim with everything, because if you start putting all those parcel numbers down and you keep recording them and keep recording them, that's where he made the comment about the transposing, because you record them so many times and you make a mistake when you're recording them the one time and you move a 7 where a 0 should have been, and now it's a different parcel.
Legislation though, so yes, legislation, that's got to be right? You transpose something in legislation and then you've screwed things up and you have to go back and fix it. That has to be, you have to identify things via parcel number, via plat, or in-lot numbers, via legal descriptions and things that have to be recorded.
Okay, so notes and addresses are going to point, addresses and notes are going to point us in the right direction.
Right.
Then we can go to the parcel numbers if need be.
Best practice, I suppose your notes and your legislation would match up. Best practice.
Good.
Okay, my comment would be, the minutes state, McKeever noted we needed draft legislation for zoning reclassifications for the area of 815 and 825 Whetstone Street. I believe you need to put the permanent parcel numbers in these minutes if you're going to have the minutes read as they say, for the area of 815 and 825 Whetstone Street. Because if you go to the auditor's website and you put in the address of 825 Whetstone Street, and there is an 825 Whetstone Street. I know some thought that there was no 825 Whetstone Street, but there is. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. 15 parcels that are identified as having property address 825 Whetstone Street. Now, I know y'all got my emails that I've been sending out about this very issue. Of these, however many I said, I forget already, 2 of them are not included in the piece of legislation. And according to Landon Hill, he's double-checked, they don't need to be included. But I, as a citizen, if I read your minutes and I think, oh, there was zoning reclassification for the area of 815 and 825, I'm going to go and I'm going to put 825 in my search engine, and it's going to come up with all of these permanent parcel numbers. And I'm going to think, wow, all of those permanent parcel numbers have been reclassified. Well, guess what? 2 of them weren't reclassified. So that's where I think you need to identify the permanent parcel number. Because if you don't, again, you're going to think all 825 Whetstone Street. Of course, this says for the area of, which I have my opinion on that wording, but again. But anyhow, I believe you need to have permanent parcel numbers in there.
Due to the fact what she just brought up, do we need them? I mean, it seems like we need them in the exact parcel numbers in the notes. Or in the minutes.
Well, I guess pragmatically, I think that we could spend a lot of time debating whether or not they're needed or not, but it's a simple fix to put them in, and it's clarity. So legally, do I think that there is a legal lawsuit that they have to be in our minutes? I don't think they have to be in our minutes. Is it best practice to put them in there? Absolutely. Best practice to identify exactly what parcels we intend to include in our minutes so that it is further reflected in our legislation. I think that would be best practice so that anybody who wants to go back and figure out if what we intended to do through a committee that then was further done through the legislation is all lined up. Yeah.
I agree.
I mean, that would be my best practice.
Yeah, I agree.
But do I think that? I'm splitting hairs, but yeah.
I would have to go back and listen to say for sure, but I'm pretty sure the parcel numbers were not specifically said during that meeting.
Right, and that was it.
Committee?
Bruce?
Oh, if I'm the one that's selling property or wanting to buy property, or I want to know what's going on, you think I'm gonna buy 825 and not know what I'm buying?
I agree.
It's crazy.
Okay. So we'll table this to have Rebecca put in the actual parcels that are in the legislation for the minutes. Is that the consensus of the committee?
Yes, for me.
Yes.
Sure.
Yes, Jen?
Could they just be put, like, down at the bottom, 825, 815 Whetstone, parcel numbers listed under 825 Whetstone, parcel numbers listed under, could it be done in that,
Footnotes?
That, but we'd have to have it here to do it.
I understand,
Yeah.
but rather than go through the whole, you know, like it reads in legislation, just have them listed at the bottom.
Yeah, I mean, they're your notes, they're your minutes, so yes, an identifying feature, a footnote, it's not. It's just an identifying feature for 815 inclusive of these parcel numbers, 825 inclusive of these parcel numbers, 760 Highland, 610 Whetstone. Yeah. It's just a further clarification.
I can do it either way, but my question is, do you need to table them, or can you vote to approve them with those corrections?
I think that you would table them at this point.
I want to see them first.
Right, I would table them pursuant to
Okay.
revision, just so that we do have those numbers correct.
All right, we will table those minutes to have those parcels notated at the bottom of the minutes for the mentioned properties. All right, D, building zoning code. Okay. Need more information on this one. I don't have those.
And we're gonna have to, it's gonna take a while, we might as well just take the time to read through what she sent us today, which is a copy of Polk Township zoning ordinance, and get an idea of what that says, and then just have a discussion the next time we meet, because that's 247 pages that I know nobody's perused through yet. I doubt we'll even get through it if we try.
That's right.
I would like to see, though, like I said, I would like to see a copy of, I mean, I know it's on the extreme side of things, but I would like to also see a copy of like Delaware, somewhere like that as well, because I would like to see as extreme as it can be to as little as it can be, because I think that, you know, we need to find that happy medium somewhere.
Delaware has a dwelling code which is available on demand, so I have requested that, but I do not have it in my hands yet. Mansfield and Galleon, I believe, both have, or it's available via request, but they haven't sent it to me.
Okay.
Mansfield and Galleon both have incorporated the International Builders Code or the Ohio Builders Code.
Which is
as
what the
their-
law director had told us, basically most municipalities use a version of and then kind of take from it what they and develop their own from.
So I'm trying to compile a general, because Galleon, Mansfield, Upper Sandusky are sort of generally our size, are
Correct.
similar geographical, economical status. Delaware, Dublin, those types of, are a little bit larger, a little bit more affluent. So I'll try to find a sampling for you. But
Well, and that's the reason, because ultimately
Right.
my thought was if we just look at similar areas that are
We're
just
going to
like
do the
ours,
same
we're gonna be
thing.
doing the same thing. And
Right.
it's just gonna be the same thing over, so
Right.
maybe for some outside the box thinking.
Kurt, address and
Kurt Fancower, 1675 South Sandusky.
You said Michigan. You said Michigan Drive the other day. No, you gotta stay with the place you're living at. You said Michigan Drive.
How do you know where I'm living at?
You said
We
place.
know. You told us.
You were here and you came up and said about
I've seen
Maybe he's
preachers
moved.
come and list the church of where they're preaching at
Oh.
before we're out there.
Whatever, just go on. We know where you live. I just give you
So
our.
I looked at the Polk Township zoning, which, I mean, if you compare it to Bucyrus's, is far more advanced than Bucyrus's. I would say Bucyrus's is not very detailed. Just one example I seen in the Polk Township zoning is outdoor wood burners are not, or they are prohibited in all the residential zones, and there's no mention of those in ours. So theoretically, if somebody on Arrowhead, if they want to put an outdoor wood burner in, they could smoke the whole neighborhood out. So, you know, just things like that. My biggest issue, I think the more strict R1 district in Bucyrus should not allow manufactured housing. Things like, should stone driveways be permitted? I think in the more strict residential R1 district, there should be a requirement at minimum to have blacktop. And then also overhead electric, should the service drop to the house be required to be underground or overhead? Just that's some of the things I think you guys need to think about. At least in the most strict R1 district. If you want to allow the R2 and 3 to be more relaxed, you know, that's up to you guys. But I'm just thinking, for my property, there's a lot of vacant lots down close to me running down Beale there, and I just hate to see it filled up with manufactured housing. So thank you for at least having the discussion a little bit.
I don't disagree with what he says. I think if we do look at that, though, we are going to have to take into consideration that we do have a community that's probably a median age of 60+ years of age, so we start making requirements for driveways to be, instead of stone, be blacktop or concrete. That could cause some of these people some issues because they might not have the funding or ability to do that, and they plan on living in their house until they're completely unable to. So maybe we work it out to where we can grandfather some of those people in if we would decide to go that route, but I'm not disagreeing with what he's saying. I mean, it's more uniform.
When you do a zoning change, anything that's there now is grandfathered.
Right, just stating that we need to do that if we're going.
You basically just be talking new construction.
But I don't disagree. It'd definitely bring some more uniformity to the construction going on in the area maybe, and I don't know that we need to be as specific as they are out there in the reserves with lighting and siding and colors like that, but.
It's pretty nice out there.
Oh, I'm not gonna argue with you. It's beautiful out there, but I just don't know that everybody can do that. I actually, coincidentally, just today received an estimate because I was looking at new siding and roof and stuff for my own personal home, and the estimate came back at $33,000, and I about stroked.
Siding?
Siding, windows, roof.
Get with me later.
So, I can see how it can be expensive, but I think they are good ideas because if nothing else, it may help us from our property maintenance issues as well that we have that come down the road further, so.
Okay, well, we will wait for some more information to mull this over. When you have time, try to look it over and see what you like, don't like, and what you would like to possibly try to apply to our zoning.
Pardon? Yes. This has to do with ordinance number 31, 2021. You don't have it here on your agenda, but it's in the plating committee. You passed legislation Tuesday night. Has to do with, and I should say 31, 2021, if that's not what I said. That was legislation, and I sent y'all emails on it, aside from the law director, because I just got his email address earlier today, and my computer wasn't wanting to accept you for whatever reason, so.
It's the same email address.
What's that?
It's the same email address.
And I know, and I kept and I put you in as a contact,
Gotcha.
well, then it keeps coming up Rob. It wouldn't come up
Ah.
you. And I thought, no,
Gotcha.
I want your name to appear on the
I
email,
gotcha.
not Rob's name. But anyhow, Tuesday night, you folks passed, council did, ordinance 31, 2021, that had to do with the rezoning of those lots out in the fairground area. Okay? The email that I sent tonight to all of you folks at 4:48 is, I've done a little more research on that matter in addition to the earlier email I had sent to you all. And I'm just gonna read my email because some of you are looking a little,
I'm reading it.
Okay.
What I'm doing.
I think there was a problem passing that legislation because you haven't even had the public hearing yet. And you have to have your public hearing first before you can pass the legislation. Because the purpose of the public hearing is for the public to come and express their concerns, ask questions, and possibly suggest some changes. But for whatever reason, that piece of legislation was read at 3 separate council meetings. And the procedure that we followed in the past when I worked here as the law clerk is that first off, the legislation is prepared as a draft, which the legislation was identified as draft. And I believe, John, you can attest to this since you did this when you were in the engineer's office. Law director's office, we prepare a draft. That draft was then given to the engineer's office. They posted it. Purpose of the posting was so that the public would have a document to come, if they so chose, to look at and read and know what's being reclassified. That had to be posted no less than 30 days before your public hearing. Then, after the public hearing, the draft legislation is then referred back to the sponsoring committee, and in this case, it would be the plating committee. You guys rediscuss it and possibly make changes to the legislation if any changes were asked for at the public hearing. Then you request legislation of the law director's office, whether it be the original draft that they had prepared or that draft with any changes that were asked for at the public hearing and approved by the plating committee. And then legislation's prepared, and then it's presented to council, and then council approves. So I think we got the cart before the horse here. So my concern is your public hearing is scheduled for this coming Tuesday. And you've passed legislation that should not have been passed. And I'm wondering what's going to be done. I mean, I have to question if legally you can have that public hearing. Secondly, the legislation that was posted in the engineer's office does not have the correct address. It has, and I know you discussed this at your council meeting because I watched. It just says property located at 815 Whetstone Street for parcel numbers, and then it lists all those numbers. Well, the Planning Commission letter, and this was brought up by Clerk Warren on Tuesday night, the Planning Commission letter states 815, it says 815 Whetstone, and then in parenthesis 825 Street. The fact that you don't have 825 in parenthesis on this piece of legislation, you are identifying all those parcel numbers as being associated with 815 Whetstone Street, and only one of those parcel numbers is associated with 815 Whetstone Street. The others, as I have a printout from the auditor's website, they're affiliated with 825 Whetstone Street. So I'm concerned that your legislation that you've posted is not accurate. And then we turned around and passed legislation before the public hearing was held. So I'm just curious.
Well, I'm at a loss. I don't know, what do we need to do here? I'm at a
Nothing like
loss.
being under the gun.
So I don't know about the first part. I would have to do research into the procedure and the timeline on the posting. I'm playing catch up on that part.
Would you like a copy of all the emails that, like I say, I did not include you in because I was waiting to get your email address because I had asked for it. Because I did not know if you were doing another address other than the law director one, because when we had another interim law director, I emailed him his own private. So would you like this?
Deal. Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
I'll just let you pass it around.
I did know about and did research into the 815 and the 825, and it's my general opinion, most of the case law as far as identification of real estate is going to come down to whether the public is generally able to identify what was the intent. And there's a bunch of mortgage case law when the real property description has been screwed up, or the address identifying the real property description has been transposed, or the real property address has been left off, or the parcel number has been transposed, but the actual property description is correct, or the parcel number is correct. And so the first part obviously could be an issue if public hearing and notice on that is completely out of whack. Don't know, would have to get back to you and would have to get back to the committee on that issue. But if the only issue is the 825 was left out and otherwise we have every parcel number that is correct and properly listed, I believe that would be a proper notice of what the legislation is and what would be the zone, what would be intended to be reclassified and rezoned. That would be my opinion on that matter. As far as the proper procedure and whether or not public notice and public participation in the process, I would have to look into all of that for you. I'm not sure at this point, but I'll get back to you.
Well, and I know your concern over transposing of numbers, and I mean, I know that's easy to do.
I'm just saying, generally, all of these numbers and the spirit of the law is, does the public have the opportunity and knowledge of knowing what is done? So on a mortgage, if we've got the correct legal description but the address is wrong, they're not, the court isn't going to say, well, you had the address wrong, so sorry bank, you're out your secured property. I mean, that was the whole line of case law. If you've got the meets and bounds description was wrong, but the property address and the parcel number was correct, they're saying, yes, your property description's wrong, but we are properly, you have enough here to properly describe the property. So what I would take from that, taking it one step further, if we have all of the parcel numbers correct, my opinion would be that we have enough of a notice to the taxpayers and enough notice to the citizens that these are the parcels that we are reclassifying. Now, this second aspect of it that I didn't really know until 10 minutes ago could be an issue that we would have to start over on.
So then I guess my question to you would be, okay, somebody looks at the permanent parcel number and goes and puts it into the search engine. Because the legislation says the redesignation of the property located at 815 Whetstone Street for parcel numbers, and then it lists a whole slew,
Yes.
12 or 13 of which are not for the property located at 815. So I, as a citizen, take one of these permanent parcel numbers, I put it in the search, and it comes up 825 Whetstone Street. Well, how am I to know that that permanent parcel number is one that you wanted to reclassify? I mean, my thought could be, oh my gosh, that isn't with 815 Whetstone Street. That's with 825 Whetstone Street. I wonder if they've goofed. I mean, it's like if you're going to put the address in, you need to put the correct addresses. You either put the correct information in or you don't put it in at all, in my opinion.
Right, and in the opinion of the Supreme Court, that would be not reversible error. They
I'm
have
not-
held up mortgages, they have held up, I'm just saying, if that is our biggest error, and my job is to look out for the taxpaying citizens, the council, and the citizens of Bucyrus. If we get sued and they say that there is some anomaly and this has been reclassified improperly, and we go to the Supreme Court of Ohio, the Supreme Court has said those types of errors are not going to be reversible. They're not going to say that this has been done improperly based upon the fact that 825 was dropped off of there, because the property descriptions through the parcel numbers are a good enough, a sufficient description. They're specific enough description of what we were intending to do. That's the case law as I read it. If the Supreme Court tells me I'm wrong, I stand by my reading of this law in this area.
So our concern is, I mean, you keep throwing out about suit and suit. I don't know if that's an intentional dig because I have sued the city before. I mean,
No, that's
I don't understand.
my job.
Again,
My
it's-
job is to defend against lawsuits. And every single day when I sit on this side of the desk, I plan for the worst. And the worst thing that ever happens on this side of the desk is that somebody sues me. Somebody sues my client. Somebody brings lawsuit against one of my clients. And in this job, my client is the city of Bucyrus. So if I'm defending this legislation, my argument is these parcel numbers specifically address what parcels we brought under this new zoning ordinance. And
But they're not-
if we did not put 825 on this legislation, that was could have been a oversight, but we have specifically addressed the exact parcel numbers in a clear fashion that adequately addresses which parcels we intended to reclassify, and that's my legal
With the
opinion.
statement that says, by the redesignation of the property located at 815 Whetstone Street for parcel numbers.
Yes.
I mean, you're stating right in the legislation that those parcel numbers are for 815 Whetstone Street. I guess
We have a disagreement.
yeah, we do. I'm sure we're gonna have plenty more too, if you are, if it turns out that, you are a permanent law director.
I just, Kurt Fankar's 1675 South Sandusky. I just looked up the Ohio Revised Code 713.12, which is zoning regulations, notice, and hearing, and it says before any ordinance, measure, regulation, or amendments thereto authorized by section 713.07 to 713.11, which I think is the zoning.
I have to read that one too then.
Well, let me finish this one first. Inclusives of the revised code may be passed by the legislative authority of the municipal corporation, shall hold a public hearing thereon, and shall give at least 30 days notice of the time and place thereof in a newspaper for general circulation in the municipal corporation. And just by past practice, we redid the zoning there on Center Street for the meat market, and we did have a public hearing for that. So you know,
But the public hearing was before the legislation was passed.
Right, and I, you know, just reading this, it appears as though that is a state law that has to be followed. So, you know, I don't know how you fix it after Tuesday.
Do you have anything to add, John?
John Rostash, I live at 1115 Dean Street here in Bucyrus. And yeah, Vicky and Kurt, they are correct. We have a flow chart in the engineering office that was put together that shows you step by step the process of how it's supposed to go. And how this piece of legislation came to council to be voted on, and you said it was 3 separate readings? So 3 separate readings. It never should have prior to a public hearing, because they are, you know, Vicky and Kurt are correct that prior to passing the legislation, you do have to have that public hearing. It may be a case where, since it was passed, it has to now be repealed and then go through the public hearing process and have a new piece of legislation drafted to instill. And but again, we have a flow chart. Mr. Gernert, I'll get you a copy of that so you have it. But it's that flow chart was taken right out of our zoning ordinance, and we made that so it would clear up issues like this. So maybe as a council, you can have a review of how this ordinance came to be put on the agenda and voted for these times, and get that corrected. But I think it is fixable, and we can move forward with it. But we'll just have to look at some of those things closer as a community of administrators and executives here. But yeah, we need to get that fixed for sure. You got to have that public hearing before you pass any of those legislation pieces. Thank you.
So we have to make a motion to repeal this? I'm asking you. Because we didn't have the public hearing yet, that's next Tuesday.
That would be full council, right?
Right, but you'd have to do that in council, or you could do it. I suppose you have to do that, this committee, come out of this committee to repeal it, and then do it at full council to repeal.
Right, we have to make the motion to
Right.
repeal it, and then
Right.
it goes to council.
Right. Yeah.
And in the meantime, we also have to go ahead and make sure we cancel that meeting for next Tuesday
Right.
and start all over.
Okay, so do I have a motion to repeal this?
Certainly.
Second.
Aye.
All those in
Sure
favor?
does.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And then we'll go to council next.
Okay. Well, we refer this back to council as being repealed. And we will have to, we need 30 days notice, so we have to,
That'll be after the council meeting.
right.
No sense in doing math now.
No, we have to refer it back to plating so we can discuss and go from there.
And might I suggest that since you're repealing the piece that you passed in air on Tuesday, and you're going to be preparing another, that you put 825? What's that?
You want to put 825 in
Yes.
the new one?
I mean, hey,
Why not?
yeah,
I
thank
gotcha.
you.
Okay. All right.
It's all over this community that way, because there's multiple rental properties that they listed by the one main address, but they don't list the others unless you look at the tax cards in parentheses.
Okay, I can't hear a word you're saying.
I was talking to Bruce.
You're, you have to talk so everybody can hear. I've had a discussion with the Attorney General's office on that. So, this isn't.
Well, since you want to hear what I said, Vicki, I said that there are lots of houses in our community that if you look on the auditor's report card, they are listed by the main address, and they are just in parentheses with the other addresses that are there because it's a rental property with 3 properties in one. Sorry for headbutting you, Bruce.
Thank you, Bruce.
Okay, I'm asking for a motion to adjourn.
Please, because I gotta use the restroom.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Motion passed at 7 PM.
I will call the October 21st Health and Safety Committee meeting to order at 7:01 PM. Members present are Mark McKeever, Bruce Truca, James Mee, and myself as chair. Item number 1, is there any public participation for health and safety? All right. Hearing none. You have in front of you minutes from April 22nd. For approval, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
I have a first by Mr. McKeever with a second by Mr. Mee. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same.
Aye. I haven't read them.
Okay, that motion passes. And does anybody have any open projects they would like to discuss? Did the fire chief leave or did he just step out for a moment? I was told he wanted to give us an update on EMS.
Good luck.
Okay. Then no update. Hearing no open projects to be discussed, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
First by Mr. McKeever, second by Mr. Mee. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, we're adjourned at 7:02 PM.
I'm not even gonna convene my meeting. No, I can't, I don't even know what the original notes were, let alone what these are, so I'm not gonna have service.
All right. All right, it is 7:03, but I think we should probably give a few minutes for Mr. Coe to come back.
So now I'm one person missing.
Just vote.
Oh, geez, okay. Might have a no vote for me, so maybe you better get some money extra.
You might be here.
Right. There are 2 meetings in between.
Waiting on you, sir. Okay, so at 7:05, I'm going to call the Public Lands and Buildings Committee meeting to order. Present are Doug Vogt, Mark McKeever, Bruce Truca, and myself, Chair. Do we have any public participation? Okay. So the first thing on the agenda is the approval of minutes. I know for a fact that the 7:22 minutes, the changes were adding the word previously, which I didn't see necessary, and a change of date, which was done. What were the changes for the 13 minutes?
I believe, I can go grab it and look. I haven't printed it out.
You have them printed out?
I have the email printed off with the changes in.
I say, well, then we can ignore that one. And I know that the next one was the September 8th. Sorry, I looked at the wrong. And there were no changes necessary there.
On the 13th ones, I believe it was the last sentence, McKeever adjourned special public lands.
Yep.
And
McKeever adjourned special finance and public lands and buildings.
yeah. But the 8:13 minutes are joint with finance and they tabled theirs.
Right, so we will go ahead and table that one, but if you guys would like to go ahead and pass the July 22nd and September 8th, since the necessary changes were made to the one and there were no changes to the other.
I'll make a motion to approve the July 22nd and September 8th with the corrections that were made.
Okay,
Second.
second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, so the motion passes. So 2 out of 3 are done and we're down to 1. That's a positive. Okay, next on the agenda is the 1411 North Sandusky Avenue sale. It had gone through and got switched over to platting by an accident during meeting. And so we needed to bring it back to public lands. We had passed it previously to have it go to full council, but since the platting was placed on there, we needed to bring it back in and vote on it again to send it back to council.
I make a motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Oh, do we have any discussion?
Yeah. Go to the podium,
Sure.
please. I've never been there.
It's way over here.
1411, 2/31/2021. We really don't know the reason why we were on the deed to release it. And the 2 other properties sold and we wasn't on that. Shouldn't we find out why we were on the deed to, the city was supposedly to release it for sale?
What all was stated the last time by the owners and the previous owners? Do you remember?
I was under the assumption that it was due to the EPA, but the dates didn't work out, so it wasn't that. So we don't know.
Madam Chair, I believe it was because the city needed an easement to access a manhole or something for storm drainage in the back. So we needed to maintain that easement with whoever the property owner was.
So it's
Was
still.
my understanding.
So it's still there.
The easement is still there. Yeah.
The easement would be recorded
The
with the
easement,
county.
yeah, and the easement would be recorded, it should be referenced in the deed.
Correct. If you have an easement, it would continue perpetually.
But that'd be filed with the county, right?
Yeah, it'd be on record with
I
the
think
county
our-
recorder's office.
Mr.
As long as
Chicanowitz
it's
is why I
referenced, it
remember
would
that, because he had
continue.
that issue with the fence and
The fence on
he
the
had the
easement.
deed restriction, and they still built the fence anyways because it was allowed to be built by, they gave them the building permit to build it because they didn't look into the deed restriction on the county's end of things, and that's how they ended up getting the permit and building the fence. That gentleman that came a couple times.
Correct, I remember that.
Yeah, that was, he had that deed restriction for that easement that,
So that restriction's gonna stay on that deed even though somebody else bought it? That, an easement's gonna stay on that?
And
Yeah,
the
they'll
other thing,
continue to pass.
they had said that it was there before because that back piece of property was not owned by the same people and it was to keep.
And it has changed.
And that changed.
Yeah, but it did change hands, and there's a couple of them. So there's a title flaw, not that it's the city's problem, but we should probably go back and fix their title flaw, or at least contact the owners and let them know they need to contact us to fix their title flaws. Because digging through Rob's email, there's title flaws that when it transferred out of to Sunoco or Henry's real whatever. Rob had 1,900 unread emails, but there's a couple of transfers that they never got council approval when they transferred it out. So there is title flaws in that, and they should probably be
And I'm the one that brought that to his
fixed.
attention.
Right, it's in
Because
there.
I couldn't figure out why the young gal who's purchasing this building
Mrs.
from
Wolf, right.
Harry's,
Harry's, that's right, not Henry, Harry.
when they had the planning commission meeting, and if you'll listen to that recording, I'll stay up here with you if you don't mind, I got it in, but I've got some information. It's the planning commission minutes and what they say on the recording is misleading. They're saying that the reason that the gal had to come to the city and ask for a release, or I guess it wouldn't be she, it would be Harry, was because the deed had that stipulation that there were 3 parcels. And let me back up a little. Bob Irwin, when property was owned by other people and it ended up being then transferred to Bob and his wife, they then turned around and had a lot split. And at that time there was a new survey. So we had 3 separate properties. On the deed then, from Irwin to Irwin, that's where the restriction was that stated that the grantee, which the grantee on that deed was Bob Irwin and his wife, they could not sell any of those properties separately without council approval. Well, they sold one property and did not get council approval. They sold another property, well, they sold another 2 properties and did not get council approval. And then when this came about, that Harry then's gonna sell to, the young gal, I believe ACS Title then caught that, oh boy. So really, it wasn't Harry, it really should not have been Harry's responsibility to come to the city and ask for approval. He had to ask for approval because the party who should have asked for approval sold the properties and didn't get city approval.
Right.
So,
How do we fix that?
You should go back to them. I mean, we could talk to them, but you could approve all of those transfers. It's just a title flaw. I mean, it's not necessarily a city problem, it's a title flaw in the record.
because as I pointed out in an email to Rob, and I also believe I sent it to the council members as well, that Harry still owns one more property. So if and when the time comes that he decides to sell that,
Right.
and if somebody's doing the right title search, Harry will be back here asking for the city to approve that sale.
Right, but as long as the original intent, from the city standpoint, as long as the original intent, which probably is to protect our easement for the manhole that's back there, as long as we still have access to our manhole, that's really why the restriction was put in there, so that we always have access to maintain that place. So yes, there's a title flaw for these landowners.
But I thought an easement ran with the property.
It does, it does.
So then why would the city, then that doesn't make sense. Then why would that verbiage had to have been on the deed?
Extra protection, overkill.
So if the city okays it, then we give up.
We don't give it up. No,
Yeah.
you don't give it up.
No, the
You-
easement's
Easement never,
been
both parties have to agree to get rid of the easement. It takes both parties to get rid of the easement. If you get an easement, it's permanent until both parties agree to say, forget about it. It'll never dissipate, it'll always be there.
Right.
It's permanent until both parties agree.
Could it be possibly that that verbiage was put in there so that way that not only did it protect the easement, but it protect from any future development that would try and develop on top of that manhole cover and things of that nature?
Right, and you split it so many times, or you put, somebody gets in there without knowing that the city's got anything, and it gets lost in the bottom, because it's just the notation that it says this easement shall run with the land, but most of it's generic language that nobody reads into. So if it's in, that it says you have to have, you know, city approval, that's above and beyond what typically says, and all easements and restrictions of record, because that's in every deed, and all easements and restrictions of record. And nobody knows, because typically you have an easement in everybody's property for the road, the utilities that run out in front. So it's easements and restrictions of record. Well, this is a weird little segment of Bucyrus back in the Sunoco Ridgeton Restoration is what it used to be. So we
Actually, it
probably
was giant video back in the day, Brian.
It was a video store. So you throw that in there so that whatever happens to this property, at least the city is covered. But yes, there's a title flaw back in there that you pointed out, which isn't necessarily our problem, but it is something to keep in mind and make sure that whoever transfers that in the future doesn't try to slide that under the rug, because there is a probably utilities or a manhole back there that the city needs to maintain. I'm not.
So the easement is always there.
Right.
So us releasing the property has nothing to do with the easement.
No. No, the easement will be there.
Why do we have to release the property?
Because it's on the deed.
Because it's on the deed.
Is there any way to find out when that was done and who did it?
Yes.
Please do that.
I will
It's
do
said
that.
between Bob Irwin and Rob Irwin. It was when he separated the parcels, and when they came in here and talked, that was supposedly put on because they separated the parcels, and that would make it so that the people in the back parcel could still be able to get to their land, and they had to have the city approval so that there wasn't a big fight between people, is what they came in here and told us.
So if we release it, then the people behind there will be able to.
No, because that's still owned by the other one on the side, so they've already got another way in, is what they said when they came in here, and we're all explaining that to the council. It was no longer necessary to worry about.
I had the understanding, I thought all three properties had to be sold as a whole.
Right. But if they were not sold as a whole, if he wanted to sell them as a whole, there was no need for city approval. But if he sold them individually, or maybe only sold two, he had to get city approval, and that was not done.
Okay, a first and a second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I think I thought we did that already too.
No. All right, so we're going to send that back to full council, where hopefully anybody interested will come and talk to us some more if there's an issue. All right. So do we have any other projects? Was there anything else that needed to be talked about in public lands this evening?
Not tonight.
Can I get a motion to adjourn public lands?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, public lands is ended at 7:19 PM.
All right. Since I have been able to read my minutes and go over it, we're going to convene at 7:19. I wait until Kevin
For
sits down
service.
for service. So at this present time, I need a motion to accept the minutes.
I'll move to accept the minutes for 7:22.
Just looking for the right page. I'll second that.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Motion
And
passes.
Lisa's not here, so we'll
And-
have to
I don't need to excuse her. And open projects list, maybe by the next service meeting, we'll be able to have, everybody will have a copy of what's on the open projects list. I want to hurry up and get that ironed out, so.
I emailed what I have to everybody.
All right, well, maybe you can print a copy for me and everybody, so we all have printed copies that we can see. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
We don't need a motion
All right.
to excuse?
Okay. Since you say that, okay, what time is it?
It is 7:21.
Okay.
So. Okay. So what's next? We motion to adjourn, that's fine. You want to second that?
Second.
And we'll, all in favor at 7:21.
All right.
Love you. Anything after special lands? No, it's a meeting, right?
There is no closeout. We're not joint anymore.
Not joining.